Well, as we vote this week in our country, there are currently around 30 million people in South Africa who are food insecure, who do not have certainty that they will have enough food. Many of them are children. Andy du Plessis is the Managing Director at Foodforward. SA. Andy, afternoon to you. We know that there are many, many people who really don't have enough food. Has this been a big enough issue during the election campaign? I mean, it almost seems to have disappeared.
You're absolutely right, Stephen. Thank you very much for having us. I think this is one of the issues that have sadly been lacking in the addresses of political parties and the issues they are going to seek to address. I think specifically the more they are looking at the more populist stuff, and you know, food insecurity is not one of the more popular things, but one of the gravest or one of the highest challenges that we have to deal with across South Africa. So you're right, it's something that has not been addressed.
Do any of the parties really have a proper policy to deal with the sheer scale of it? I mean, you know, all of the parties, the big parties at least, have manifestos. I think all the parties have manifestos. Do any of those manifestos get to grips with the problem?
Unfortunately not. I've spoken to some of the political leaders of the up-and-coming political parties, Songezo Zibi and others I've spoken with, and it's clear that many don't understand the scale of the problem, the complexity of the issues, you know, especially around rural poverty. And I think what we would have loved to have heard come out of these political parties is saying that, you know, we can't address the problem, but there's a non-profit sector that is on the ground addressing these issues and have been for many, many years. They've got a tradition of this. So the solution is to partner with such, you know, across South Africa, more than 60 government programs across various departments have billions of rands addressing food insecurity. And yet we haven't even made an impact into the problem of food insecurity and malnutrition across South Africa, simply because the non-profit sector has been sidelined.
I mean, I suppose the other issue is really this is a problem around economics. And I mean, if you get our political parties talking about economics, the manifestos on paper don't look that different, really. Get them in a room together and they look for reasons to disagree.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think that's the crux of the issue. But you know, when addressing the problem of food insecurity, when around 30 million people are food insecure, I think one of the issues we have to realize is that procuring food or just giving food, buying food and then giving food to people is not sustainable in the long term. I think we can safely say that our economy is going to grow at a rate of around 0.5% over the next 2 to 3 years. That's what economists are telling us, and it's not enough to create jobs and give people a meaningful income. So we have to think innovatively around solutions of how do we collectively address this problem, because it's not a problem government should be addressing on their own. They don't have the resources or the implementation capacity. But you know, if they partner with the non-profit sector and with business, we can achieve so much more.
There are other issues that come out of this, and I mean, we've been making progress for quite a long time, and one of the ways that you could see that was, you know, in 1994, I mean, it's a scary figure, but around 1/3 of our children were growing up stunted. In other words, they didn't have enough food growing up. Social grants came in, other things changed, that number went down all the way to around 17%, I think it was. This is the UN figures I'm looking at now. Then after the pandemic, the percentage of children that are stunted started to go up again. And what that really shows is how big the impact of that was and how we still haven't really caught up.
Absolutely. You know, the Department of Social Development, the National Department, released a report last month by an independent organization that did a report for them on the impact of social grants. And the report admitted that around 8 million children that are on the social grant, the child support grant, are not getting the adequate nutrition they need to be able to grow and develop. And I think, you know, that's just testament to, one, the scale of the problem, two, the fact that it can't be government addressing this problem. It's much larger than any one institution or organization can address. We need to look at scale solutions that are cost effective and that involve the private sector, the food supply chain across that value system, as well as the non-profit sector and business.
And what I don't get is that, you know, people are voting, right? I mean, you know, people often vote with their stomachs. It's an old political expression. And I don't know if that's going to happen this time around. People who don't have enough food probably don't go to a ballot box. I mean, I'm obviously speaking very generally when I say that, and I can't prove that, but is that one of the problems?
Absolutely. We are seeing more and more communities are becoming frustrated. We can just see it with the amount of protests, service delivery protests that are coming up every single day. We have about 25,000 service delivery protests annually, and they are increasing. Today, we had a service delivery protest in the Western Cape, and one of the buses were burned down as a result. People are now saying that you can't drop off a food parcel a few days before. You can't give KFC, as some political parties have been doing, and hope to get your vote. People are saying they want solutions. They want to improve their lives. They want this issue of inequality and poverty to be addressed. And so far, that has not happened. 30 years, in the last 10 years, our stats around stunting, which is malnutrition related around children under 5 years, has increased from 24% to 27%, and that number is growing. And as unemployment increase, as we saw last month, it's ticking upwards, we are going to see further levels of starvation, food insecurity. And as we have been seeing in the Eastern Cape and KZN, people are dying of starvation. So they are abstaining. Many of communities have said they are abstaining from voting, or they're going to vote differently and hope that some of the new political parties or representatives will be able to improve their lot going forward.
Thank you very much indeed. It's such an important issue. Andy du Plessis is the Managing Director at Foodforward SA. Really do appreciate the time.